Hi, everyone. It's Nina Collins here today to talk about cryptocurrency with Rika Khurdayan, who is a super lawyer, a rising star in New York. She's a FinTech lawyer specializing in blockchain, virtual currencies, tokenization of assets, all of which I understand the meaning, but she also specializes in DSOs and STOs. I don't know what that means. But welcome, Rika. We're very, very glad to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Nina, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the stellar intro.
You're welcome. Rika's Russian, which is really cool. And she was just telling me that she grew up there and then moved here a little less than 20 years ago. In any case, so Rika, our community, the Wolfer community, is women over 40 generally, really smart. I think one of the interesting statistics about our community is over half of the women have master's degrees or above. So we're definitely, pretty well educated. But I think a lot of us, and the little reading I've done about cryptocurrency talks about what a bro world it is. And so it's come up in various threads that we have no idea what cryptocurrency is, and we want to know. And I can tell you myself, like, I'm a bit of an investor. Like, I'm certainly in the stock market. And so I'm no dummy to that world. I was married to a hedge fund guy for a long time. But I really know nothing about it except that my kids have been doing some blockchain stuff. Like, my 21-year-old son does some blockchain stuff. So, and originally when we booked you for this call, I thought I would do some research and then ask questions. And then I realized, like, I don't even know the first thing. Like, all I understand is that it's a virtual currency. So I think I'd like to ask you to really give us your 101, and I will ask questions that I think people in the community would like to ask. I want to know things like what's blockchain? What's Bitcoin? How do you use it? How do you trade it? What's mining versus staking? What's Ethereum? I kind of know what a fiat currency is. I guess it's the idea that we make up a currency. But yeah, give us your take on this world.
Sure. Let's try to demystify and deglamorize cryptocurrency a little bit. So it's really, the tech itself, the underlying tech, it's quite complex. It's cryptography, but the general idea, I think people try to overcomplicate it really for no reason. So what blockchain is essentially, I call it a fancy spreadsheet.
Okay.
So essentially it's a database, and the technology really is not new. Maybe we'll jump a little bit about cryptocurrency versus Bitcoin versus blockchain versus Ethereum, right? Okay. So Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency that was the first iteration of the blockchain technology. So blockchain is the technology underlying the Bitcoin, and blockchain itself uses distributed ledger technology as its framework. And it's not really new. It has to do a lot with cryptography. And a lot of cryptographers have been working on putting together technology like this for many, many years. And Bitcoin is essentially the first iteration of this technology.
Okay.
Blockchain, yes, it's really a database. And what makes this database special is that this database is recorded and records transaction and processes the transactions within that database on every single computer or node in that database. And it's distributed. It's not a central database. For example, a bank that has a ledger with all the accounts, right? It's distributed across all of the computers within the network. And every single computer within the network has the access to see what's happening in the database and all of the transactions, which makes it essentially impossible to hack it and manipulate it, because you would have to physically hack into every single computer on the network. So once the network grows, it becomes really impossible to do it. Okay. And that was the beauty of Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin was really the first currency, or the first technology that solved they call it the double spend problem. Essentially, if you think of money and how we deal and how we transact with money, we have a bank account, right? And let's say Rika has $100 in a bank account, but it's not really physically $100 being kept somewhere in the bank. It's just a mark, a ledger somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And then I decide to send you $10. So my bank doesn't go and take out $10 from my $100 that sends it to you. They also make a mark. And then they settle and they validate all of the transactions. So the actual money doesn't really change hands. And we don't really own the money. We give the bank our money, the bank then uses it to lend it or borrow against it. So the idea behind Bitcoin was to give people the ability to custody their own assets without using a third-party intermediary. So, and to be able...
Is it a little bit like owning gold, say, like a gold bar?
Yes. So Bitcoin has been called digital gold for a long time. And I think it's actually a better analogy than currency because of the fluctuation in value, right? Like, I don't really see people buying coffee with Bitcoin just because, you don't want to wake up in the middle of the night 10 years later and think that you've paid, I don't know, $600,000 for your coffee.
Right. Bad.
So it's, yes, it's really a store of value, but as opposed to gold, it's a store of value that you can custody yourself. You don't need to hire intermediaries to keep it or insure it, and you can transfer across borders within seconds and virtually for free.
Okay, so now, does Bitcoin still exist? It was the first one, it still exists. So what are the other names for things that aren't Bitcoin? What are the other cryptocurrencies?
So I would look at cryptocurrencies and I would make a differentiation between different sort of like asset classes, right? So you have traditional cryptocurrencies, and traditional, I mean, they were first ones and they're the most used ones out there. It's Bitcoin and you have Ethereum. So Bitcoin came out first, and the only thing you can do with Bitcoin is transfer value, right? That's the only, like, it doesn't have really any other functionalities. So then Ethereum.
You can't buy a car with it. You can't buy anything with it.
Oh, no, you can buy anything with it, but that's the only thing. You can either transfer it to each other or exchange it for something else of value, right? So that's like, you can only transact with it.
Okay.
And then after Bitcoin, Ethereum came out. That was a really, really big deal because Ethereum took the same blockchain technology, but now what they've done, they've build this database, and now you had the functionality to build apps on top of it. So now beyond just like being able to send this cryptocurrency from one wallet to another, you could also build conditions onto it. Automatic, and those are called, that's the concept of smart contracts. So Ethereum is, as a code, lets you program in certain conditions into it, and let's say, you can essentially program something like, if Rika sends Nina $10, then Nina sends, I don't know, Stephanie $20, right? And all of this will be executed. The minute I send you $10, the other transaction will be executed automatically.
Do people have to, I mean, wouldn't you have to get all parties to agree? I know I'm thinking very analog. I'm like imagining contracts where you sign this and agree to it. I mean, how do you get everyone to agree?
Well, so then we'll get into, because different cryptocurrencies function differently, so they can all be used for different things, right? And the idea usually always behind it is to cut out middlemen. Let me give you another example. For example, when we buy something online, I go to Amazon and I place an order, right? And then I pay with my credit card. And then essentially is like, I haven't received the product yet, but I already paid for it. And not only didn't I pay for it, but I borrowed money from someone else who paid on my behalf, whom then I have to pay back, right? Then I wait for the product to arrive. And usually it arrives, and like, there are few complications within the system because we always use trusted intermediaries. Amazon verifies their sellers, there is a refund policy, credit card has custom, there are kind of like chances to go, if things go wrong, to go through it. The
Yeah.
blockchain is trying to enable us to do transactions directly without knowing each other or trusting each other, and without using these intermediaries.
Wow. Okay.
So let's say, trying to think of an example.
Like, let's say I want to buy a house in Spain
Mm-hmm.
and we're using cryptocurrency. I can like just, I mean, I guess I don't really understand. Like, I mean, obviously we're bypassing the banks. You're just dealing with people directly. No.
So that's another, you can, so essentially with crypto, you can buy for anything, for real estate as well. There actually been a lot of transactions, real estate transactions in New York and all over the country closing in cryptocurrencies.
Really?
A lot. It gets a bit complicated because of taxation, because cryptocurrency is taxed as property. So it's not really taxed. Well, currencies are not taxed, right? So every time you buy or sell crypto, you are taxed as if you just sold property, and you have gains on the sale or you have losses. So that makes every single transaction a bit, a bit complex.
So this
with cryptocurrencies that fluctuate in value, but there are also things that are called stable coins.
Okay, what are they?
Stable coins.
And then I want to ask, tell me what stable coins are, and then I want to ask, how is the government feeling about all this and regulating it? But go on.
Yes. So stable coins are amazing. Stable coins, essentially, yes. So stable coins are really like virtual currencies because the value is pegged. It can be pegged to dollar, to euro, to any other currency, so it doesn't fluctuate. So we have USDC that's always $1. We have SUSD. There are like different stable coins pegged to dollar. So you would think, why do we really need them? Why can't we just send dollars, right? That's usually the question I have. And this really has to do with where we are geographically. We are quite used in the US to banking transactions being super fast and easy and free. We have Venmo, right?
Yeah,
we have Chase Quick Pay or whatever it's called. We have all this way to send money each other instantly and for free that you would think, why do you really need some other new fancy blockchain enabled stable coin, like essentially a dollar? But it's not the case in the rest of the world. So if you look at places like Asia, if you look at places like Africa, if you look at Central South America, I mean, Asia specifically is exploding with stable coins because all the cross-border transactions are very, very expensive and take a long time. So for example, Philippines were one of the first countries to look into having a central bank issued digital currency because they have a lot of people working overseas that are sending money back to their families. And the average cost of sending money, whether Western Union or whatever other services there are there, you're paying between 15 and 20% just to send money back. It's a lot. It's a lot. And it might take also a few days or a long time, and versus a stable coin that's free and instant.
Okay. So how do you get a stable coin?
So there are different platforms out there. We will not complicate things.
Thank you. I'm learning. This is awesome. I'm definitely learning a lot. Well, there is. Wait, let's go to how we get them. Let's do that later. Tell me a little bit, like, how does the government or the world feel about cryptocurrency? Like, how does Biden feel about it? Like, are people supportive of this?
So despite popular belief, it's a really heavily regulated industry because depending on the type of cryptocurrency you're transacting with, you'll have different regulators. So first of all, FinCEN, right? Like our financial enforcement network that has to do with money laundering regulations and oversight. Regulates it. So cryptocurrency traders, providers, platforms are regulated as money service businesses, money transmitters. They need to be licensed and registered. The transactions are scrutinized. IRS is incredibly good at tracking all of the transactions at crypto. Very good. They work with many tech providers that can essentially look. I think by now they've identified probably owners of like definitely more than 90% of the crypto wallets out there, because they do all kinds of fancy techniques that I don't understand, data scraping and other things. And they're able, the beauty of blockchain technology is that every single transaction is recorded. And then there is no capability for anyone to go and change the record. Okay. So it's perfectly transparent. And if you know how to read the ledger, essentially, you can go and track every single, let's use Bitcoin as an example, from the moment it was mined through every single wallet it traveled to, every little exchange, every, wow. Really see the whole history behind every single coin.
So there's a question from the chat saying, what's the risk? So that's a vague question, so I'm not totally sure what that means, but yeah, what's dangerous about using this then? Why are people afraid of it? Why don't we know enough about it? I guess just because it's new and it's very technical, it sounds.
I think that's where the industry went, in my opinion, sideways a little bit. We got so technical about it. Like, for example, I use an iPhone, like I can't live without it, right? I have no idea. Yeah. My whole life is here.
I was thinking one of my daughters loses stuff all the time, loses keys, loses whatever, but she would never lose her phone. Like it's literally like in her hand all the time. So yes.
But I have no idea how it works. Right. Like if you ask me like what is actually happening here, I don't know. I click a button and things happen. So it's the same sort of thing with blockchain technology. It's a way to record transactions. Now, of course, it's a new tech, and there were a lot of, cases of fraud in the 2016, 2017, especially, but it didn't really have much to do with the technology itself. It's mostly people raising money to build some exciting new tech, right? And using the hype surrounding cryptocurrencies to essentially raise money and disappear, and that's your garden variety fraud.
Okay. And that's actual transactions.
Exactly.
The person in our audience clarified the example with Amazon, where you have all these verified parties in the middle. You're dealing with Amex and you're dealing with UPS. So if you take all those people out, what is the risk to us as a consumer if you're dealing with an unverified party?
So, and that's exactly what blockchain technology solves, is it lets you cut out the middleman, the trusted middleman, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll backtrack a bit into this like double spending problem. So for years, the cryptographers were trying to figure out, well, if we introduce virtual money and there is no intermediary like a bank to verify all the parties and that the transaction happened, right? Yeah. How do we get people to trust each other? For someone who's never met, how could I just send money to party A sends money to party B, right? And then party B says, I never received the money, right? Yeah. Or party A says, I send the money to party B, but never actually sends the money. Mm-hmm. So this has to do with the way the transactions are recorded and verified. Essentially, you have all of these computers, and with Bitcoin, they're called miners. They're trying to compete. They're trying to compete for the right to verify the transaction. And by verifying the transaction, they get rewarded in cryptocurrency. And to compete, it's basically computers solving a lot of algorithms and equations, essentially, to record the transaction. So if I'm sending you $100, right? And we have millions of computers on the networks that are all competing to record this transaction that I've sent it to you, and they recorded and other computers in the network verify it, you can't possibly claim that you didn't receive it. and I can't possibly claim that I never sent it to you. And it's not that there is a third party that, you know, like there is like a random intermediary that has a ledger and records the asset is actually transferred, as if someone went and took $20 cash from my hands and transferred it into your hands, right? So we don't need that third party to keep the ledger.
Okay, so this is a kind of hilarious old lady question, but is there a customer service number you can call? What do you do if something goes?
Well, and that's the key. I don't remember the numbers now, but there are now billions worth of Bitcoins are lost forever just because people forgot their passwords, they lost their, so you can store cryptocurrency, they call it hot storage, which is when you connect it online, and cold storage. Cold storage, it's essentially on a drive that's disconnected, so no one can hack it or steal your money. It's impossible because it's not connected to internet. But the only way to access this cold storage is, well, essentially you have to keep your drive safe, and a lot of people just put it on flash drives and lose them. Yeah. And then you have to plug in, it's usually a very elaborate password, which is like 12 to 18 random words that you need to write down on a piece of paper. And then a lot of people have lost those papers too.
Okay, so these are some.
So that's it. There's nothing you can do.
Okay.
There is no customer service, no. And that's why we have companies like Coinbase that just went public, right? So what they did is they've essentially, even though the, you know, crypto purists don't really like Coinbase because they function as a traditional, more of a traditional bank, they're an intermediary. And the whole point behind crypto was to cut out an intermediary. But they've done a phenomenal job of making crypto user-friendly. Because you don't need to go through the exercise of how do I get it? How do I set up the wallet? Connect it, disconnect it? Where do I put the password? How do I transact? It's so complicated. It's honestly complicated. I've been in this space for like 5 years now, and it's complicated for me to go and figure out how to get crypto outside of this like central exchanges like Coinbase. So they've done it very easy for the users. They essentially also have their own central ledger, and they say, you know, Rika owns 1 Ether, but then...
All right, so for all of our listeners, Coinbase might be a place to start.
Exactly, Coinbase is the easiest one.
I have to say, between, you're so beautiful and your accent is so awesome and you know so much, I feel like I'm envisioning you in like a financial thriller. You should be like, I think you have another career ahead of you.
I like it.
Yeah, I totally see you as being like, you know. So how much do you actually use cryptocurrency yourself? And what do you use it for?
So I will tell you, besides the stable coins, because I use that for payments, and we work with clients all over the world, and it's a lot easier to actually transact. So we provide services. We don't mind being paid in cryptocurrency.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll have a legal bill of whatever, $20,000, and someone will just pay you in cryptocurrency, and you have it.
Yep. So so basically, if it's a stable coin USDC, there will be no difference in price. But if it's Bitcoin and or Ethereum, just because it goes, you know, a little bit kind of like the back end of the firm, right? It goes into the firm's operating account, and the operating account is in dollars, and there is no way we would like store actually the payments in Bitcoin or in Ether because we need a stable currency. Then we would use a provider that would essentially on our behalf send an invoice in Bitcoin, but then automatically convert it into dollars into our operating account. Okay. So for our purposes, the transaction is in US dollars, but the clients send money in Bitcoin.
Wow. All right. And what do you use it for? Do you buy clothes with Bitcoin? Do you pay for vacations with Bitcoin?
So I follow advice of one of my old time clients that he gave me a long time ago. He told me, Rika, buy Bitcoin with money you're not afraid you're gonna lose. and then forget that you bought it.
Okay.
And then it will surprise you.
That seems like good advice right now.
Yes. So because I'm not a trader, you know, and it's hard to follow that advice because you look at the value and like, oh, do I sell? Do I buy? Do I sell? Do I buy? So I remember the first time it was going through kind of like the peak in 2017 that it went to 19,000 last time. It was very, you know, oh my God, like the value quadrupled, like 10 times more, need to sell, then need to buy. And then, you know, I tried all this and then I realized I'm not, you know, I'm a lawyer, maybe a movie star in the future, but not a trader.
But no, I agree. Generally with investing, I mean, I don't know enough, like, I feel like it's important to diversify and then not do anything, basically not react. Out. So I'm sure that makes sense with Bitcoin as well. So if you have it, like however much you have, do you have, I still don't really understand like the logistics of an account. Like, do you log on to an account somewhere and see how much you have?
So it depends. It depends on the amount and it depends, right, on what you use. So Coinbase or like an exchange like that is like very user friendly. So you literally connect it to your bank account and then you buy directly on it. And then that's where you log in and you might have 10 different cryptos there and it shows you your portfolio essentially, and that's where you have it. Now there are things like, you've read in my bio, DSOs and STOs. Those are fancy names. It's essentially the same thing. It's called security token offering or digital securities offering. Okay. So I do a lot of tokenization of more traditional assets. So when you take traditional equity and you tokenize it, meaning, I mean, no one really issues stock anymore in paper form anyway, so it's just, again, recorded somewhere in a spreadsheet, right? But now you can issue these digital securities that are blockchain enabled, where, again, I don't need an intermediary. I can custody my own assets, and then I can easily sell them and transact and transfer on secondary market without the need of hiring, you know, attorneys and doing a secondary sale of stock. If it's a private company, you know, that usually involves a lot of legwork.
It all sounds like it's going to be illegal. Like, it all sounds like so crazy. Like, you can just
look, I'll tell you. So for example, so digital securities, they're regulated by the SEC, right? They're regulated by FINRA. They're regulated by FinCEN. It's a heavily regulated industry. Then many years ago, I think it was 2018, the UK Treasury issued a report actually where they ranked different mediums of exchange, I guess, or different institutions on how likely these are to be used in money laundering. And you had, you know, traditional banks, you had different trust structures, insurance structures, casinos, accountants, trustees, attorneys, and you go all the way down. And Bitcoin was the last one because they said that's the only, like, we can actually track where the money came from and where it's going. Like, full history of the transaction. So it's impossible to hide it now. Before we knew how to read it and how to look at it, you know, it's people could do whatever they wanted with it. Yeah.
Right. And there's still a big learning curve. So do you think that cash will disappear in the next 20 years?
I mean, what's cash? I'm going to ask philosophical questions.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, over the last year, I mean, I used to have a bit of cash, at least in my wallet. With COVID and Apple Pay everywhere, I don't remember last time I carried my wallet even with credit cards with me. I have everything on Apple Pay, right? Like, not even going into crypto. I still have a credit card in my Apple Pay that I know I threw out accidentally over a year ago. but I'm too lazy to cancel it because my number is already in my Apple Wallet.
How old are you, Rika?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm 36.
Okay. So I'm 51, and I was in LA this weekend visiting my 22-year-old daughter. We went for a walk around Silver Lake, the reservoir, and we met someone who was selling candles. And Ruby said, "Oh, we should get some." And I said, "Well, I don't have my wallet." And she said, "You don't need your wallet. You have your phone." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she was like, "Venmo, Apple Pay." And I was like, "Okay." So I do use Venmo all the time, and I do have a wallet on my phone, but I don't really use Apple Pay very much yet, but I'm going to start. So yeah, we probably won't use cash soon, right? I guess that's the answer.
Yeah,
No.
and then the thing is with like, I do a lot of work in Southeast Asia. And then if you look, it's a completely different economy there, because for us, it's really odd, right? Everyone has a bank account. But that's not the case in the rest of the world. Like in Vietnam, I think the traditional banking penetration is under 20%, but the mobile payments penetration is over 90%. People just can't afford to have a bank account, but so they don't have a bank account and all of their money is in their phone, essentially.
But how can their money just be on their phone if you don't have a bank account?
It was mind-blowing to me. So we were working with a client in Thailand. They have this special system or program or software where they partner up with the government, where you can issue a paycheck and you send it to people's phones who don't have bank accounts. They're like special applications, like government sponsored, and it's not a bank account, but you get your digital money. It doesn't necessarily have to be cryptocurrency. It was like even before cryptocurrencies. So for places like this, because the bank account, I don't know, you can have like a person in Vietnam is making $200 a month and not going to pay $30 a month to maintain a bank account.
Right, of course. Yeah.
But they all have $1,000 smartphones. And like, again, our life is in our phones, essentially. That's global.
It's really amazing. Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been super helpful. I can't tell you how grateful I am.
I hope so.
We didn't get to what's mining versus staking, but we covered a lot. Do you want to briefly tell me what mining and staking is before we go?
Yes, I'll tell you very quickly. So this has to do with I'm gonna say fancy words, consensus protocol that cryptocurrencies use. But essentially, there are different ways within each network. There are different blockchains. Like Bitcoin is its own blockchain, and Ethereum, it has a completely differently functioning blockchain, right? So the way that transactions are being validated on Bitcoin is called proof of work. And that means that you have these computers, as I said before, that are solving equations all day long, trying to validate the transactions and being rewarded as a result in Bitcoin. So this process of solving the equations in order to validate the transaction is called mining.
Okay.
So it's essentially a governance protocol for the database as to how this, I don't want to call them computers, how they function and how they interact with each other to verify the transactions. And then proof of stake is different. It's a little bit like Ethereum is now transitioning to proof of stake. Now they're going to give more value to the node or the computer that verifies the transaction if that node holds a lot of Ethereum. Okay. So now you have to buy, for example, if I own 1,000 of Ether and you own 100 of Ether, I'm going to have more say in my vote as to how the transaction should be verified. So they're introducing, it's a different voting mechanism, and that's called staking.
Okay. Wow, I feel like I've learned so much. You're just awesome. Thank you very, very much for your time and your expertise. And we really appreciate it. And we're going to put this out as a podcast episode too. So everyone.
Nina, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Take care.